Boker Tov, Moadim L'Simcha. Today's daf is daf Vav in Makos, as we learned for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael on the Sunnah Matzar V'Shivya. We learned yesterday until the Mishnah. We covered the Mishnah on the bottom of Hey and Beis and Vav and Aleph. But just for clarity, we'll repeat the Mishnah quickly. It says the Mishnah at the bottom of Hey Amid Beis. Al Pi Shnayim Edom O Shlosha Edom Yumas Hameis. When it comes to giving edus, you need always, we know, everybody knows you need two kosher witnesses, which means men, Jewish men who are not disqualified for some other reason or are not relatives. The pasuk says two is good enough. Why does it say three? Or shnayim l'shlosha. In other words, when you have edus of two or three, two is the same power as three. Two is the same power as three. Let's say two people say one thing, and 3 people or 100 people say the opposite. That's considered equal, because two is like trei kameya. That's the rule. So the same thing, just like two could be mazim, can confirm that the other people are liars, just like 3 people can confirm that 2 people are liars, 2 people can confirm that three people are liars. When I feel, how do we know? Even 100 times. Adam makes no difference how many there are, as long as there's 2 or more. Reb Shimon Omer, Shimon adds on, not necessarily that he argues with the Tanakama, but he says, Mashnayim eina roganat shiu shneim zomin. We mentioned this the other day, that if to make Adam Zomin, that means you have to say Imanu Ha'isam. We had the Mishnah explain that. You have to say you were with us. How can you know this testimony? You were with us, and that's in this place at that and that time. So so they're not mazim them unless all of them. In other words, if 2 people say something, and then one of them has turned out to be a liar, they tell you one of them, you were with us in St. Louis on that day, at that time, etc. Then it's not zomin. It has to be both of them or all of them. So again, if there were 3 Adam and they turn out to be, they all testified to the same thing, but 2 of them turn out to be liars, according to Reb Shimon, they're not zomin. You have to that all of them are zomin. That's what Reb Shimon says. Or even if it's 100 and you prove 99 are liars, but 1 wasn't, that's Talmud Omer Adam. No, it's all one group. Rabbi Kiva Omer. There's different sheets as what Rabbi Kiva means. Rabbi Kiva says, Lo ba'ashli shel hakol. It's not a kula that you have to be mazam all 3. If you only mazam 2 of them, they go off scot-free. It's not coming to be mekel. Elo hachmer love. But lasos dino kiyotze be'elo. To say, if the 3rd guy can't excuse himself and say, oh, they're liars, well, I'm out of here. I'm not included. No. If they all testified, according to some, not everybody agrees that that's Pshat Rabbi Kiva. According to some, Rabbi Kiva would say that if you're mazim 2, you're mazim all of them. If 100 people testified something, you're mazim 2 of them, they're all considered azama, and you'd punish them all. Some say that's what Rabbi Kiva means to say. He's not coming to be meko, he's coming to be machmer. Or in other words, or it's just coming to say that the halacha is the same for 2 or for 3. If the pasuk is punishing somebody who's tofil toveh. In other words, let's say there were 99 guys who testified something, and one guy says, "Okay, I'm going to say that too." You join them, you're going to be punished like them. For somebody who joins somebody who does mitzvahs, certainly going to be included. Why? Because the pasuk said, one pasuk says, "No chesed la'afim" or "Osa chesed la'afim." Hashem confirms His mercy and His kindness. Not mercy, kindness, the 1,000 generations. When it comes to perennials, it says, Al Shilei Shimla Rebbeim L'Sarnoi. He only punishes the 3rd or 4th generations. So Hashem always gives more good than He gives bad. So if the pasuk is telling you that a person who joined other Adam who were liars, and he's going to be punished like them, so certainly if you join people who do good things, you're going to get the reward of those good people. Again, in the Gemara, the Mishnah says, so certainly if the pasuk punishes you, if Hashem punishes you just for joining bad guys, you're certainly going to be rewarded much more than that for joining good people. And this, now what again, what's the idea of Shnayim o Shlosha Edom? That just like 2 is a group, three is a group. Three can mess up two, can call two liars, and two can call three liars. That's what Rav Shimon says. And that's what the Tanakama said. And Rav Shimon adds on, and in order to make the mazama, you have to be mazam all of them, right? That's a kula. Rabbi Akiva may not hold of that kula, or maybe he's just coming to tell you in general that the pasuk is coming to tell you that if you join bad guys, you're going to be like them. And then 2 lines from the bottom of the page in the Gemara, in the Mishnah, Umashnayim nimsechem mehem karva pasol edusum betela. And just like if you have two people, two witnesses, and one of them is found to be a relative or he's disqualified, the whole latest is no good. Af shloshim nimsechem mehem karva pasol edusum betela. Minayin afilu meya, and even I'm talking about Eidim. So if you have 100 Eidim testify that Reuben killed Shimon, and one of them is found to be a relative, or he's disqualified because he had some other psul, he was a Russia, he did some other Averos, the whole thing is batal. Rab Yossi at the top of Vav Amud Aleph. Rab Yossi medvar memurim bedin nefashos. Rab Yossi says that rule that if you disqualify one of them, they're all disqualified. That's only when it comes to capital cases where you're going to kill somebody. Rashi says, the pasuk says, "V'shafta later." 10 people, let's say, will prosecute him. 10 people will find him. Will try to defend him, and we're looking for schus. You should try to find a schus. So if one of the Eidim was puzzle or a car of a puzzle, the whole thing is batal. But if it's din amamis, it's a money matter. Reuben owes Shimon $100, and there's an issue there that they are liars. One of them is found to be puzzle. Let's say 5 people say Reuben owes Shimon $100. And 2 or 3 of them were found to be puzzle. They're no good. So you say the whole thing is puzzle? No. Rebbe says that they're not puzzle. You could use the other 2 who weren't puzzle. Rebbe says no. Rebbe disagrees with Rebbe Yossi. Whether it's money matters or whether it's capital cases, murder, or not murder. Murder is one of them. It could be erva or avodah zarah, whatever it was. If it's a capital case, then the same thing applies, that if one of them is puzzle, they're all puzzle. Amazai, and when, now this Amazai is going on what? Amazai, when does Rebbe say that Bisman She'isru? Only if they gave him warning. In other words, let's say there were 5 witnesses, and one of them was found to be puzzle, or he was a karov of one of the other, a relative of one of the other witnesses, a relative of the defendant, a relative of the person upon whom the crime was committed, right? The person could either be the plaintiff or it could be the victim. In any of those cases, so we say, Rebbe said that whether it's din amamis and Russians, if one's puzzle, they're all puzzle. But that's only, says Rebbe, if they were the ones who gave the warning. But if the witness did not give a warning, let's say this witness is found to be disqualified, or he's a relative, but he didn't give a warning there, then he's not, then that doesn't ruin it. Why? Just don't include him. Let's take this case. Let's say you have A and B are witnesses. B is one guy out in the street, and A is another guy here. And it happened to be that C, another guy, is a brother of A, and he also saw the murder. Now, do you say A and C cannot testify together because they're brothers? So because C saw the crime also, A and B cannot testify? A and B are not related. B is one guy, A is another guy. They're both witnesses to this, what happened to a murder. And C happened to see it also, but C is a brother of A. So what are you going to say? Because C is a brother, therefore A and B can't testify? He wasn't trying to be a witness. He just happened to be there. That's what it means over here. He didn't give a warning. If A and B saw this murder about to take place and say, listen, don't kill Reuben, don't kill Shimon, you're going to kill him. If you kill him, you're going to get punished. You're going to get, what is the punishment for murder? Hereg, right? Hereg. He's going to get decapitated. You're going to get decapitated if you kill him. We're warning you right now. He's about to do it and he says, yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. So they're good witnesses and they could kill the guy. But C happens to be a brother of A, happened to be there too. He wasn't the he happened to see it, but he didn't mean to be an A. He just happened to be there. So two brothers happened to see the murder. One was a witness, really was a witness. He says, don't do it. He was not just that he saw it, but he took an active part. He said, don't kill him. The other guy just happened to be there. He was upstairs. So we're saying he could testify, but his testimony is worthless because two brothers can't testify together. But do we say that since C is an invalid, is a disqualified witness because he's a relative of A, that the whole thing is no good? We don't say that, says Rebbe. In other words, you understand what I'm saying? He says that if witnesses came and testified, and one is disqualified, or he's a relative, or he's disqualified for some other reason, the whole thing is batal. But that's only if he meant to be a witness. He warned the guy, he warned the criminal, don't do it. But if he just happened to be there, that doesn't ruin it. That's what he's saying. Understand? But A and B are good witnesses, and if one of them turns out to be puzzled, then it's no good. Then they're no good. The whole thing is batal. Even if there were 100 witnesses and they're all good, they all seem to be good, but one of them turned out to be no good, disqualified, but they all took part in giving the warning. That means they meant to be witnesses, and one of them was no good, and the whole thing is no good. And the guy goes off scot-free. So that's why it's very hard really to get a capital case where they're going to really execute the punishment. Amarava, says the Gemara. You said there could even be 100. Well, how could there be 100 witnesses? They all have to testify. They could only be the count as one group, one group, if they all testified within Tokhdei Dibur, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, with the time that it takes like a second or two. They all test. How could that be? Amalei Ravacha b'diftu Ravina michti Tokhdei Dibur hechidami whatzach Dibur k'dei shel Shalom Tam Rav, for a Talmud to say to his Rebbe Shalom Alecha Rebbe. Well, how could 100 people testify in that? How could you hear 100 people testify within 2 seconds? It's almost impossible. He says no. Right? That's too many people. You can't have 100 people testifying within 3 seconds. That's not going to work. So he answered him, and Ravine answered him, we don't mean that they all testified in court within 3 seconds. How could 100 people be heard within 3 seconds? We mean that 100 people testified. The first one testified. The second one testified within Tokhdei Dibur of the first one. The third one testified within Tokhdei Dibur of the second one. The fourth one within Tokhdei Dibur of the third. That means that it's all considered one group. Rabbi Kiva Omer lo bashlishi umashnaim. So yes, this goes on the whole end of the Mishnah of Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yossi. Omle Rapapa Labai Elameata Harug Yatzol. Think about it this way. According to Rabbi Yossi, says if you look at Rashi, Rashi says Harug Yatzol the Rabbi Yossi, right? Rebbe said that there, you only say kula, that one invalid witness can ruin the whole group. That's only if they all took part in the warning. They all warned them, so they all meant to be witnesses. Rabbi Yossi didn't say that. Rabbi Yossi just said, no, it only applies to nefashos, to mamras, not. But he doesn't say that they all have to testify. They all have to be part of the group. So that means that anybody there, if they happen to be a brother or a disqualified witness who happened to see it, then it's the whole thing is batal. So, according to Rabbi Yossi, the person was killed himself. He was tested, right? The person was killed himself. He should be able to get the defendant off the hook. Why? Because he saw it, and the testimony is about him, right? If he's dead already, right? If he's dead already, he can't really testify anyway. But the point is the fact that he saw it, that means that he saw the murder about to take place. So he's also a witness, and he can't testify about himself. So every person, the victim in every single case, can disqualify the other Adam, because since the victim is disqualified, so they're all disqualified. The answer is, well, it's possible that he was killed from behind. He didn't see it. He wasn't a witness. A person could be killed without being a witness to the murder, right? He didn't have to take him to the front. Or near Vayatzel, if a person was sodomized. So are you going to say also, or he was adultery committed as upon him of bestiality? Near is usually bestiality. Should be able to save himself. Again, he was attacked from behind, so he didn't see it. In other words, the victim doesn't always see the crime being taken place on him. Might be from behind. So Horig Varova, Yatzilu. Okay, but the murderer, or the sodomizer should, the person who commits the adultery, the incest in this case, whatever it was, or the bestiality, the murderer himself cannot testify about himself because he's the murderer, right? The attacker can't testify. So since he's puzzled, everybody should be puzzled. You say he didn't give a warning. Rebbe doesn't hold like Rebbe that only witnesses who gave warning are valid witnesses. So how are you going to say that? Ishtik, he didn't have an answer. So Abai didn't have an answer. That Yasel coming to Ravava when Rapapa came before Ramalei, Yakum Davar, Makami Davar Kasam Davar. The Pasuk says Al Pishnaim O Shlosha Edim Yakum Davar to establish it. Right? In other words, we're only talking about the people who established what took place, not the people who took part in the act, not the attacker or the victim. We're only talking about the people who established it, which means the Edom. So again, but Rav Yossi and Rebbe really have a machlokus, in which case, the case I said before, A and B testified that Reuben killed Shimon. And it happened to be that A's brother C was upstairs looking at it from down. He wasn't part of he didn't warn or anything. He just happened to be up there. But you know what? Because he's a brother, that disqualifies all of them according to Rav Yossi. I'm Rav Yossi. How do we know? So we say, well, if C happened to be there. Well, according to Rebbe, we said Rebbe says they have to give the testimony, but according to Rav Yossi, they didn't have to be there. But how do we know if they were just happened to be bystanders or they were really meant to be witnesses? Amarava, this is what we tell them. Do you come just to look? Were you just a kicker, like we say, a looker? They were rubbernecking. They were looking at whenever there's an attack taking place, they were looking. Oh, did you come to give testimony? Yeah, if they came to give testimony, so then just if one of them was found to be a relative or disqualified, they're bottled. But if they say we came just to see, what are you going to do? So therefore, according to here we say Mayas is really going on Rebbe's. So it's a little bit difficult because Rebbe said that if they warned them, if they didn't give a warning, then they wouldn't be included. Well, if they wouldn't give a warning, then what do we care really if he said I'm coming for to be a witness, or I'm coming just because I happen to be there? If he gave a warning, then it is. If he didn't, he didn't. So that's the question. So that's a little bit difficult to understand Rebbe's words in the Mishnah. Itmar, the last line on the page. Amar Avinu B'Shmuel Alach Rav Yossi. The halach is like Rav Yossi. That what? That you don't have to be part. You don't have to actually give a warning to be included to be included as a witness. From Nachman Amar Alach Rebbe like Rebbe. Like what did Rebbe say again in the Mishnah? If you look at Rebbe in the Mishnah, and then it could be that what we're saying over here, the halacha, the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and the clear machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rebbe is: does the rule of Eidish Batal Mitzasa Batal Kula apply by din nefashos and as well as by din nefashos also by din mamonos? According to Rabbi Yossi, it only applies by din nefashos, not by din mamonos. But it could be that the last words of the Mishnah, right? But from Rashi's mashma that. Well, according to Rebbe, like I said, if you could tell if they were witnesses, if they actually gave warning. According to Rabbi Yossi, maybe they could. Are they witnesses or not? Would depend on what they say, not necessarily if they gave the warning. Says the Mishnah now on Vav Amid Beis. What do you mean over here? All the Edom, especially to a murder case, have to see it together. They have to see one another. If one guy was standing a mile away and the other guy was standing a mile away in the other direction, and they couldn't see each other, then they can't add up. That's what I mean. Or even let's say two people saw him from one window, Vishnayim or some from another window. But the person giving, again, if you hold that, you don't have to all give warning. One person gave the warning in the middle of Echad Masrabo Be'emtza. There was another witness in the middle who gave the warning, and they all heard that presumably. When some of them saw one another, in other words, even let's say one person from the first group, A and B, and there was another group, C and D, and A saw C, that's enough. then they're considered like one group. Eidos achas. In other words, so now we have 5 witnesses, and they're considered one group, and therefore you have to be mazim all of them to be Eidim Zomin. You have to be mazim all 5. The imlav, if they can't see one another, harel shtei eidos. 2 people saw the murder. A and B saw the murder from one window. C and D saw the murder from another window. They didn't see each other. A and B did not see C and D at all. Then they're 2 separate groups. In other words, there could be 2 separate. One group comes and testify about this same murder, Reuben killed Shimon, and another group comes and testify about that Reuben killed Shimon. What's the difference if it's one group or 2 groups? If it's 2 groups, then if you're Muslim, let's say A and B, C and D's testimony still stands. You see? If it's one big group and you're Muslim some of them, well, then they're not all Muzam, they're not all Edom Zomin, but you've ruined the Eidos. If it's one big group, Eidos Shabbat Muksas Shabbat L'Kula. So if it's 2 separate groups, it has 2 different functions. It means 2 different things. Number one, you have to be Mazim. If you're Mazim some, that doesn't mean you're Mazim the others. The other groups stand. On the other hand, if it's 2 separate groups, you don't have to be Mazim all of them to be Mazim some of them. So think about this. A and B is one group. C and D is another group. And if they don't see each other, what happens? They're 2 separate groups. They're all both testifying about Reuben killing Shimon. But what happens? Let's say A and B are found to be Zomin. So what happens? They're liars, right? What do we do to the Edom Zomin? We kill them, right? They were trying. A and B said Reuben killed Shimon. C and D said Reuben killed Shimon. They're not the same group because they couldn't see each other, right? Now we're Mazim A and B, right? 2 other witnesses comes to Mazim A and B. A and B are liars. We kill them. C and D's testimony still stands, and we kill Reuben. So we kill Reuben and we kill the people who lied about him because they didn't really lie, but they were liars because they couldn't see it. It's a strange thing, you see. Normally, Edom Zom, we learn, are only killed when? You only punish them when the verdict was done, right? They testified, the verdict was passed, but it wasn't carried out yet. Remember, if they said Reuben killed Shimon and the court killed Reuben, and then they're found to be Edom Zom, we don't kill them. Why? Kasher Zomam lassos lach v'lo kasher asa. But over here, listen to this weird case. Again, A and B said Reuben killed Shimon. C and D said Reuben killed Shimon. A and B are liars. You kill A and B because they're liars. Now we also kill Reuben because of C and D's testimony. And it's not Eidos Shabbat Muksas Shabbat L'Kula because there's 2 separate groups. The Fichach says the Mishnah, the attacker is killed, Reuben, the second one's Pater, because they gave good testimony. They weren't liars. So here Rabbi Yossi says they're not killed until both Edom give testimony. It could be that's shot when Rebbe said on the Mishnah on Aleph, it doesn't mean that all had to be Masrim, but they were warned. They weren't warned, right? So you could say the Gemara just expands on that and says, how do you know if they were really witnesses or not? They ask them, did they mean to testify or not? But maybe they have to. But according to Rabbi Yossi over here, this Rabbi Yossi says that they're not killed until both of them give a hasra. Shenemar al pishnayim edom, al pishnayim edom. Where 2 people have to say, have to not only testify to what took place, they also have to warn them. 2 people have to warn them. Davar another pshat al pishnayim edom shelo teisan edom shemas me'pir degorim. Al pishnayim edom, you have to hear them. Let's say you have a judge who is deaf, he can't hear, he can't be a judge, can't be in the Sanhedrin, right? He has to be able to hear them. There's no such thing as written testimony like you have in courses today, or somebody, you hear about cases where a man is dying. One of the witnesses is dying, has to give testimony. So they go into his hospital room and they video him giving testimony. And then the video is played in the court. No, the court, according to halacha, Sanhedrin has to hear the witnesses. They have to testify before them face to face. No written, no aid, no hearsay, no written, no video. It's got to be. They have to actually say it. Amrav Zutra says the Gemara. How do we know this idea? That let's say you have what's called disjoined testimony, meaning they didn't see each other. Let's say not A and B and C and D. Let's say A saw the murder from one window, B saw it from another window, and they didn't see each other. And they didn't see, they didn't see anybody downstairs giving a warning either. A and B saw the murder, B saw the same murder, but they didn't see each other. That's called disjoined, or they didn't see together. How do we know that that's possible? Shemar lo yumas al pi echad. Michael, what does the pasuk say? Al pi shnayim oidim o shlosha oidim yumas ames lo yumas al pi echad. Why does it say again lo yumas? It says like 2 or 3. He's listening to something else. Right? Why does it say lo yumas? It says al pi shnayim, and you need 2 or 3. So why does it say lo yumas al pi echad? Why does it say lo yumas al pi echad? What do you need for? My echad, ilema eid echad mamish. And when we saw from the beginning, it says you have to have 2 or 3. That means you can't have 1. So why does it have to say again you can't have 1? Right? Echad means 1 at a time. See, it says there, it says the word echad 3 times in the Gemara, right? My echad, 1 at a time. You can't have one witness saw here and one witness saw there. They have to see them together. Also, 2 people saw the murder with the first of the wide lines in the Gemara now. They don't sing. Shame is sarfin. They can't add up. That's not good. Even though they both saw the murder. Right? Even if they were in the same window, but one testified at the beginning, 1 minute, 2 minutes later, he left, and another guy came in from the same window and saw it. Also, Amit Starfin. Well, isn't that obvious? If they're in 2 different windows, each guy saw the whole act, the whole attack. They don't add up because they were in 2 different windows. They didn't see each other. When they're when they're not even at the same time. One saw it 1 minute, one saw it 2 minutes later. If one saw part of the act and one saw part of the act, they didn't even see the whole act. Then certainly would be no good. In other words, if they each saw the whole act, they each saw, say, a murder. He saw the guy Reuben kill Shimon, and they were in 2 different windows where each saw the whole thing, but they weren't together. That's not good. So certainly, if it was one saw it at 5 o'clock and one saw it at 5:02, where each guy didn't see the whole thing, certainly that wouldn't be good. Boy, certainly that's not good. It could be talking about a case where it was a person who committed a sexual crime. And there you only have to be, only have to see even for a split second. So therefore, each guy effectively did see the whole thing. Could be a case like that. That's why you told me both cases. So again, that's called like disjoint witnesses. They both have to be able, both witnesses, in order to be a proper group of witnesses, they have to see it together, they have to see each other. If let's say A and B were in 2 different windows, they didn't see each other, but they saw the guy below right next to the attacker giving warning. They both saw him. Or a Masros, or the person who warned them saw them. That adds up to. It's mashma that the Masra didn't even have to act as a witness. One saw, maybe they saw the guy giving a warning, and then he quickly ran away. And a second later, the murder or the act, whatever the attack was, took place. And A and B both saw him. That's good enough. Even if he warned himself. Now he's not a witness by himself, meaning they said, what are you doing? I know what I'm doing. And I know the punishment is going to be hereg or chenek or whatever it was. I know it. I know what I'm doing. You don't have to say anything. I know what I'm doing. That's also hasra. Even if you hear it from a demon, it doesn't have to be a normal human being. And as long as he's warned, that's good enough. From Nachman says, this disjoined testimony that we say, is not good. If A is in one window, B is another, they can't see each other, but it's miyuchedes ksheir b'din amamas. For money matters, it is okay. Did Reuben lend Shimon $100, or did he pay him back the $100 when it's a money matter? Then it is okay. Tichsiv lo yumas al pi echad. Right? It's a lo yumas al pi echad, but we just say that we learned out that this joint testimony where 2 people saw it, the same act, but they didn't see it seeing each other, is learned out from yumas al pi echad. We're talking about murder over there. Din nefashos hu dein sheira, but din amamas sheira. Maskov Zurf asks an interesting question. If that's the case, elameata, if you say that what, that they're kosher, that disjoint witness is good in certain cases, so bedin nefashos tatzil, you should be able to use that as an excuse to get him off. What do we say before? If he'd steal away, you always have to try to defend the defendant to make sure, to try to get him off the hook. So say over here, it should also get off the hook. We should also say this is also disjoint, meaning Why did we say before, when A and B saw him in one window and B and C and D saw him in another window, and A and B were found to be muzam, we still kill him based on the testimony of C and D? Why don't we say, since A and B and C and D could be considered one group when it comes to din amaminus, so at least it should be good enough to get this guy off the hook. And we don't say that. We say that in that weird case, A and B are killed because they were trying to kill Ruvain unjustly because they didn't see the murder. So they're killed. Then you kill Ruvain, but C and D are off the hook. We accept C and D's testimony. At least accept A and B and C and D as one group, legabe that the Reuben should get off the hook. That's a kasha. It's a little bit of a dre, but that's what he said. If you say that A and B and C and D are good, even though they're separate groups, they're good for money matters. So at least it should be good enough to say, get them off the hook, even in a capital case. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Amalei Rav Papa Labayo, Miasla Rabbi Yossi Hai Svara. What did Rabbi Yossi say at the end of the Mishnah? That all the witnesses have to give testimony, have to warn him. Rabbi Yossi says, Lolam ein raganachu shnei edav masrim, both edav have to give testimony, have to warn him. Does Rabbi Yossi would say, Mias Rabbi Yossi Hai Svara, but Rabbi Yossi Omer Hasoni Nereg Mishu. Let's say we know that two people hate each other. They're like a group, they hate each other. They're always trying to kill each other. They've tried before. And then one of them killed the other guy. He's killed, even without a warning, because we know he's been warned. We know that he did it on purpose. He's like a mu'id. We know that. He's like a mu'id. Umusri, he's like he's forewarned, because we've told him many times before. We know that already. So you see that, doesn't it? You don't have to give warning, according to Rabbi Yossi. I'm like, who Rabbi Yossi? That's a different sheet. That's not this Rabbi Yossi. It's not Stam Rabbi Yossi, but it's rather Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Righty? The Tanya Rabbi Yossi Bar Yeromer, Chaver and Itzrach Hazra. Tam Chacham doesn't need Esra. Let's say you see a Tam Chacham, he's got a big black hat. He's a Tam Chacham, right? If that's a simon. He doesn't need Asra. You don't have to warn him, don't commit this terrible act of idolatry or adultery or murder or whatever. Asra is to know, to make sure that he knows that he's doing this on purpose and what the circumstances are. But if he's a Talmud Chacham and he knows the rules, then you don't have to give him a warning. That's Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. But this Rabbi Yossi says, in our Mishnah, everybody has to give, each witness has to take part and give him a warning. Right? Says the Gemara, Davar Acher, Al Pishnai made him lo Sanhedrin cannot hear from an interpreter. They have to hear the testimony. It can't be written, it can't be video, it can't be an interpreter. It's got to be direct. Hanula Uzi, there were some foreigners who came. They didn't speak Hebrew. Came for a Rava, for a din. Rava Ruvain, Rava set up an interpreter, a turgoman. So the Gemara, how could he do that? By the time we just learned the Mishnah, if Rava was acting as a judge, how could he have an interpreter there? He has to hear it directly from the witnesses. So how could these foreign witnesses who didn't speak Hebrew apparently, how can they testify before Rava? Rava didn't understand. And the answer is Rava made a havayada. There's many people who understand languages, but they can't speak it, right? Rava made a havayada, my the havayamru. Rava understood what they were saying, even if they spoke in a foreign language. But he didn't know how to answer them. He didn't know how to say, be seated, or stand up, or he didn't know what he couldn't tell, but he couldn't understand them. Therefore, it's okay. Then he tells you a story. Elah Betuvia, these two witnesses saw a loan take place. However, Krevid Avra, they weren't related to the lender or to the borrower, but they were related to the arev, to the guarantor. To the guarantor, they were related, right? Avisava, Rav Papa, he thought to say, Rav Papa said, L'meimer, Gabi Lova Lova, Rachikininu. They're not related to the lover, to the malva, to the borrower, to the lender, so they should be okay. If the lover doesn't have what to pay, la basar arva azl malva, isn't the malva going to go to the arev? So therefore, these are invalid witnesses because they're related. Now we're not talking about. We said before, according to Rabbi Yossi, in the first Mishnah we learned today, that if some witnesses were invalid, the other ones are okay when it comes to money matters. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rebbe disagrees. But over here, there's only these two witnesses, and these two witnesses were related to the guarantor. So Rav Papa felt, well, they're not related to the Malva Lova, therefore they could be witnesses. So he says, no. But if the Lova can't pay, the Malva is going to go after the Arev, right? So therefore, when he goes after the Arev, And the only way we know this loan took place is because of these two witnesses. They're related to the Arad, so there might be some hanky panky there. They might testify. They're related to the lova, to the borrower, because the guarantor then becomes the lova. So therefore, they're not good witnesses. All right, we'll pick it up from the Mishnah tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem. Have a good day, everybody.